Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking about our very exciting first edition of our Winter Thoughts 2020 to 2021. This is going to be a series where we're not really talking about a forecast or an outlook, we're just going to talk about what we know so far, and it's very little, but I am going to get into it because I've had a lot of people asking, so take this one with a grain of salt, guys. Now, before I get started with this video, though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do weather-related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. For today's comment of the day, appropriately, I want to know, what kind of conditions do you want this upcoming winter? Now, let's get right into things. We're going to be looking at our sea surface temperatures. And this is pretty much one of the only things we have to go off of. We can go based off of our current sea surface temperatures, and then also our modeled guidance for sea surface temperatures, and sometimes we can go based off of their forecasted air temperature and precipitation, but really sea surface temperatures are very, very important at this phase. So very, very early in the season, as we're looking forward to the winter, you might be wondering, what do we even look for at this point? And there's three main things, and really one of them isn't really a thing you can even determine yet. The ENSO is the biggest one, because the ENSO is our El Nino, La Nina, or La Nada, and that's going to play a very key role in how this winter will turn out, and that's what we call a long-term oscillation. So we really get a good idea of what we're anticipating this oscillation to go towards very, very, very early on. And right now it's leaning towards neutral to La Nina, which is a big, big switch up from what we've been having in years past. So I'll just let you guys know that right off the bat. We're going to talk about what you could expect during a La Nina winter. We're also going to talk about the other oscillations and what those could mean for this winter. So let's go ahead and move on, and we're going to talk about that. Alright, in our next oscillation, we're going to have to take a look at. Keep in mind, take a mental note of where those areas are for the ENSO. I'll remind you guys, but it's really key that you remember that. So the blue region is our ENSO region, and just to the north of it, we have our PDO region. And this is one that really influences the United States as well. If we see colder than normal sea surface temperatures here, it really encourages colder than normal air to move over into the western Canada and western United States and central United States areas, and then really that would encourage warmer than normal conditions for the eastern United States and eastern Canada. That's what happened a lot last winter, and it does look like it's leaning towards negative right now, which would mean what I just said. I think that would mean really colder than normal conditions for the west and central United States. But the models do trend towards this heading positive, so we're going to have to keep a very, very close eye on it. Our next region is our NAO region, and we look for warmer than normal sea surface temperatures under that red shade there, and that would encourage colder than normal conditions in the eastern United States. And if we see a lot of blue in there, colder than normal sea surface temperatures, that would really encourage some warmer than normal air temperature for the eastern United States. But that's one that we're not really going to have any clue what that's going to be like, maybe until September, October, November. So that's one of the very, very later ones that we will kind of eyeball. But I'm going to be making these videos throughout the year, guys, so we're going to really together, if you keep up with this series, we're going to together go through all of the oscillations and just keep up to date with what they're showing, keep up to date with the models. Let me know how you feel about that, because a lot of people enjoyed it last year, but I want to know in you guys' words how you feel about this series. Let me know down below. It will really impact how much I make these videos. All right, now we're about to move on, and we're going to take a look at the modeled guidance, what they think as far as what the ENSO or El Nino region is going to do for the coming months. So we'll talk about that in our next segment of this video. Now, this one kind of probably looks confusing to somebody who doesn't know what it is, but each of those colored lines, except for the very, very big three, the blue, the red, and the green that you can see there, all of the other ones are a singular model in where they project our ENSO to go. Notice the very black line that has 0.0 to the left of it? That is ENSO neutral, exactly neutral. And then we see 0.5 there, which is where we're at, which is a very weak El Nino. And then negative 0.5 is a weak La Nina. You can see that most of them start to head down. They're heading more towards a La Nina. The red, the green, and the blue, well, the red and the green indicate averages, and then the blue is actually the Climate Prediction Center something. So that's kind of where they feel like it's going to go. They feel like it's going to head towards a La Nina. So we're going to keep an eye on this throughout the year as well. This updates once a month. Keep in mind at the bottom that each letter stands for a month. So For instance, MAM stands for March, April, May. The next one stands for April, May, June, and then May, June, July, August, etc. So really, we're going to be keeping an eye on this throughout the coming months. You can see that our winter months is there in December, January, February at the very, very end, and they spread out a lot. So they're keeping it pretty broad, and we don't really have a very good indicator of seeing exactly where the ENSO is going to go, but I'm thinking somewhere in between La Nina and ENSO neutral, and there's a big difference there. I'll talk about what either of those would mean as far as surface conditions in just a minute. All right, so we're about to move on, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our JAMSTEC model in our first winter update here on the JAMSTEC model. We're going to talk about the sea surface temperatures on the JAMSTEC. Then we will also talk about the air temperature on the JAMSTEC, which is very exciting, and then we will also talk about that precipitation forecast. All right, and here's those sea surface temperatures. Notice there in our PDO region, they have warmer than normal sea surface temperatures, which is very interesting. And then also we can see for our NAO region, they have those blues showing up. That's indicating maybe a positive NAO going to be favored, which would not be good for the eastern United States as far as colder than normal conditions. And also notice for our ENSO region, you can look at that, I would say just offshore of Ecuador, and Galapagos. That's pretty much where you're looking at your ENSO region. We do see very, very close to normal conditions, so they don't have a very big opinion on how they think it's going to be. They really don't have any key indicator of if it's going to be a La Nina or an El Nino. They're staying very, very neutral. All right, and here's your air surface temperatures. And we can see that we have a lot of red there for the United States, especially in the eastern United States and the central United States. But in the west, they're feeling like it might be a little closer to normal. We will see this fluctuate. You'll see every single month this changes very, very much so. It's going to continue to differ a lot. So we're really going to have to keep a close eye on this one. But we will see some months they will be calling for colder than normal conditions. Some months they will be calling for warmer than normal conditions. I wanted to show this just to see how it will line up. I want to look back at this and see what it was calling for then. But very, very likely this will change a lot. Let's look at that precipitation forecast. And the interesting thing here is I agree with this a lot. A very, very wet conditions there for the western United States seems likely. The precipitation forecast is much easier than the temperature forecast. And then also for the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and Midwest, they're calling for some above average precipitation as well. And I think that's very, very likely as well in a La Nina type situation if we do see a La Nina. So West Coast and then the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and Midwest above average. And then we can see that the Southeast, the East Coast, and the South Central United States would have below average precipitation. And I think that all of these things are very, very likely for this upcoming winter if we were to see a La Nina. The ENSO region really does determine a lot as far as the precipitation is concerned. And I think as long as we have a La Nina, that seems very, very apparent that that's the type of conditions we would be talking about this upcoming winter. All right, now we're about to move on, and what we're going to do is we're going to briefly talk about what our CFS model is calling for, and then also what a normal El Nino pattern would look like, a neutral ENSO pattern would look like, and then a La Nina pattern would look like, and then we're going to get into our comment of the day. Now, we don't really have any, we don't have the December, January, February yet on the CFS. So what we're going to do as an alternative is use our November, December, January. And you can see they're calling for pretty much what the JAMSTEC model is calling for. Very, very warm conditions in the south central and southeastern United States, as well as all up and down the East Coast. Really, the CFS does have a bias towards calling for these types of conditions. We're going to have to watch it very, very closely because we could see it lean towards colder than normal conditions. But really, at this point, it is calling for warm conditions overall for the entire United States, which would not be likely in a La Nina. A La Nina, it would be very likely that at least for the Northwest and the North Central United States, we would be looking at colder than normal conditions. Let's go ahead and look at that precipitation forecast. Again, the Northwest looking at above average precipitation, which is what I said was likely. Also, what's very likely in a La Nina is below average precipitation for California and the Southwest, because El Nino really brings a lot of storm systems there. La Nina does the opposite. It brings basically none. It shifts them north up into the northwestern United States. And then we also see a lot of above average precipitation, again, for some of the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, Midwest, and potentially the interior Northeast as well. Also, it would normally mean above average snow for these regions as well on average. So here's what a typical La Nina would look like. Colder than normal again for the west, and then the north central United States would be likely, and then wet conditions there for the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, coupled with warmer than normal conditions to the south there. Really, we typically look for colder than normal conditions in an El Nino in the southeast. So a La Nina, we typically see the opposite, as well as drier than normal conditions, because we don't see that jet stream come underneath that leads to a lot of nor'easters. It's very, very unlikely to see a lot of nor'easters during a La Nina. Now, here's what a neutral ENSO would mean. A neutral ENSO, which is also on the table. If you watched earlier in the video, you saw that we said that was also on the table. We would see colder than normal conditions for the northeastern United States and the Great Lakes and the Midwest, which is not what a La Nina would mean at all. And then we would see that subtropical jet down below become active, and that's what would lead to some of these southern sliders and nor'easters. So really, there's a huge difference between neutral ENSO and La Nina there. And then here's what an El Nino would mean, which isn't likely at this point, but I just wanted to show it. You can see warmer than normal conditions for the north central and northwestern United States, which is the opposite of a La Nina, and then dry conditions for the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes, again, the opposite of a La Nina, and then wet and cold conditions for the south of the United States, which again, complete opposite of a La Nina. So we've been dealing with a lot of El Nino winters lately, and I'm leaning towards a La Nina winter this winter, which is like a complete flip up from what we've been dealing with. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, what are you hoping for this May as far as conditions, because yesterday was my May forecast, and Adam Sheet says, I was really hoping for some warmer conditions for this May. Winter is done, and now I just want it to be sunny, warm, and peaceful. A lot of you agreed, a lot of you commented, and I definitely agree. I'm ready for the warmth because it's been cold for so long now. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please take it with a grain of salt. I know a lot of you are going to be saying it's way too early to be talking about the winter, but it's not too early to be talking about the ENSO and also what that would mean for the fall and the winter. So that's the whole point of this video. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.